one of the things that I feel so passionate about is how important it is that we need to think about the power and influence we have as coaches, both on our clients and in the industry, and how that it's just like it gets zero airtime. And so I think it's just like worth talking about. Hey, Baron, thank you for being here. Um, I never bring it. Yes. It's just not something that gets like airtime, right? Like, and that's surprising to me. But also like I'm part of that problem because I haven't given it airtime either. So this is us doing that. But like it the fact that we're all running these businesses and having these constant conversations about marketing and growth and all of those things, I am too. Again, I'm including myself in this. Um, but forgetting like what it means to be a coach, how much that influences like our clients, how we show up, how that influences the industry as a whole, like that is such a big part of it. And I just think like let's talk about that today, because I feel like yes, our individual marketing is important. Yes, how we show up in that way matters, but like how us showing up shapes what's happening in our industry and then what's happening with our clients, I think is just so interesting to think about and so important. And I think there's a way to do it that honors all of it. I think that so often we're just talking about kind of like how to get what we want out of it. And I think there's a way to have that kind of like power and influence, not power dynamic in a bad way, right? But like power in terms of like having a voice and a platform and an audience and all that kind of stuff, right? And the influence that can kind of come with that, or that can come with someone like buying from you and being like, I want to be mentored by you, I want to learn from you, right? And being able to say like, how can this benefit all? Like, how can I show up, even if it's in a one-on-one conversation, in a way that benefits my client, benefits our industry, and benefits myself? And none of those have to kind of like, one doesn't have to take away from the other, right? Like I have a revenue share model. So technically when my clients are doing good, I benefit greatly too, right? But I think that like this sort of idea that like it's mostly about getting the sale and then the rest gets let go of, I think is just, hard. And it's like, actually, you have like so much influence after you get the sale. Like, are we thinking about that? Hey, Kate. Shantae said, oh yeah, something that comes up for me is as coaches, our clients likely mirror us, i.e. us showing up, especially because at the root of what we're all doing is life coaching, even if we have different niches. Yeah, totally. I think our clients, take so much from us, not just in what happens in the session, but in what we're modeling and what we're showing. And I think there's just such an important piece of that I don't feel like people think about very much. So like an example of that would be like when people are really like kind of shamey in their content, it's like that impacts people, right? It's not like just cool, like disruptive marketing. It's like someone might read that follows you and that puts you on a pedestal and is literally massively impacted by that. And I know kind of like the response to that is like, that's on them. And like, that's on them if they're going to get triggered by something I say or be really impacted, or even if they're going to put me on a pedestal. And I would agree with all of that. And I still think there's this way that we can't completely tap out of that. Like if you're intentionally trying to trigger someone and to create all of this intensity, and then they have the intensity and you're like, I don't know, that's not mine, that's like really yours. Like that's not totally fair either. And I think similarly in a coaching dynamic too, like, are we being conscious and intentional about how much what we say and reflect impacts our clients, right? Like, I think that there's like almost like this new wave of sort of like that tough love kind of coaching and stuff like that. And that's not personally my style, but I don't necessarily have anything. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that either. I don't know if I want to say that fully. I don't think that's inherently bad, but I do think like it's almost like this idea of like I can just say whatever I want and do whatever I want, and it's like everyone else's problem. And that's what I kind of want to bring us back from is like, that's not true. You can actually do harm. You can actually, really wound someone. You can actually like really create influence over a client that is not useful and not helpful and not healthy, unless you're being aware of these dynamics, unless you're being intentional about that, unless you're being careful about that. I remember having this conversation with one of my clients recently. And I remember she was in such and kind of like, oh, let me read your comments really quick before those disappear. Hey, Lucy. Yes, such an important topic. Thank you, Diane. Elisa said 100%. I feel like there's been such a wave of shamey marketing, shamey around the reader and shamey around peers, which just doesn't vibe with me at all. Totally. Shantae said agree, especially because we also consider ourselves leaders. And as leaders, we need to use our leadership skills, even our content within the context of shaming our content. Exactly. Right. I personally have been challenged by this a little bit lately too. And then I'll go back to that client story. And that I want to call out more stuff I see happening in the coaching industry. And then also I'm like, where is the line on where that comes with a side of like shame and blame, and have been like really trying to like toe that line a little bit. I feel like I put out one post recently where I was like, oh, I maybe went too far over the edge, and I'm still like figuring out what that is. So just like transparently sharing that, like, this isn't from a place of like, I'm doing it perfect. This is from a place of like, we're all figuring it out. I just think it's an important conversation to be out there. Right. But I like didn't take it down. Like, I'm going to own that. And I'm going to, and honestly, it was well received. Nobody even told me I went over the edge, but for me, I was like, that was maybe like one step outside of the energy that I want to bring, but also like, I think it was an important point, and I'm like happy to put that out there. And so there's just kind of like nuance there. I think a lot of tough love can be especially wounding for a lot of my neurodivergent clients. That's so helpful to hear, Kate, right? Because I imagine what you're saying, but feel free to clarify too, is because it's almost like I function in a certain way that is like different from other people. And so then to get tough love around that doesn't help. It doesn't help me shift. It just makes me feel bad about myself, right? Yeah, so good, Elisa. Our lens should be, how can we all win? Yes, everyone loves that. What can we do without policing other people's way of doing it? It's like, here's what I believe to be true versus here's what's universally true. Exactly. Right. And I think that's especially important too in like the client dynamic. Like I was saying, that example I was going to give is like, I was on a client call, and one of my clients had just had something like really intense and personal happen. And I could tell she was just in such kind of like an open and vulnerable place. Hey, Steph. Patricia just said, for me, I'm trying to figure out how to balance giving value and sharing pieces of my life without making it feel like it has to be like me. Totally. I've definitely been challenged by that too. Kate said we need a lot of nuance. I just did a post like the difference between not hand-holding versus hand-holding and custom guidance for people who need accommodations. So good. So this client was just like in a very like vulnerable place. And I just remember in that moment thinking like, gosh, like my, what's the word I want to use? Yeah, like influence in this scenario is so great right now. Meaning like if I said to her like, hey, I just think you should do X, like she's just had something really big happen. She's in like a very open and vulnerable place. I think she would just go do it. Like, I think she would just be like, okay, like I trust Lacey. She's probably right. I should just go do it. And I was trying to be so careful and intentional in that conversation to not give that off at all, to not like let that get taken on, to be like, I recognize like the influence I have here, and I want to choose my words and my position very carefully so that it continues to hand her back her power. But I don't think we're taught, trained, it's discussed enough to think like that, right? Where especially when someone's coming to you in like a difficult, challenging place, as often is happening in coaching, we want to be very cautious of, are we just being like, oh, okay, go do this, you should do this. If you're not doing this, you suck. If you're not doing this, you don't want it bad. Like when someone's in that place, it is so impactful. And I just think that we're not always watching out for that enough. We're kind of like, the best client is the client that does what I tell them to do. And like, that's just not true at all. Yes, exactly. Keep handing their power back. Exactly. I so appreciate deliberately choosing your words and position when mentoring. Yes. Hi, Benita, good to see you. Yes, handing them their power back, right? Like, I think I appreciate you saying that, Kate, because I think that it can be easy for someone to be like, I don't want to coach like that. Like, I don't want to have to be so choosy with my words, and I don't want to have to like watch what I'm saying. And it's like, actually, you fucking do, right? Like, that's what someone's hiring you for. Like, they're not hiring you to just be like, this is what I think, and this is what you should do. And like, this is my influence over you and whatever. But like, you can literally witness this in our industry so much, you guys, where someone hires someone else and then all of a sudden they become like carbon copy of them. And it's like this ongoing thing. And I don't even just mean in like content, I mean in like looks, branding, wording, everything. And it's like you can witness the power and influence someone has over other people in just that. You're like, oh, I can know who you work with. I can know who you hired just by like watching that. Like, that's fucking crazy if you think about it, right? Like, it really blows my mind sometimes when I think about that. Where I'm not even saying that's bad or wrong, like you, whatever, right? But what I'm saying is, like, can you see that influence? Can you see that power dynamic? Can you see how much that kind of like trickles down? And are we being aware of that? Both, I think, as consumer or coachee and as coach. Like, I I I think that that really does have a ripple effect on like the people in the industry, where it's like there is a way to be. Look, everyone who's doing it right is being this way. And I think that's so harmful, and I think, yeah, so what we need to do is be aware of that. What we need to do is choose our wording intentionally with that. What we need to do is recognize when a client is coming to us in an open and vulnerable place, and not taking that as an opportunity to like get them to do what we want them to do, but taking that as an opportunity to be like, how do I lean back and actually keep returning their power to them, right? Yeah, so much influence, right? Yeah, you guys are seeing it too. I can tell who someone's working with based on their marketing or process, right? And listen, I'm not exempt from this at all. I think many of my clients take on a lot of my philosophies around like relationship building and content and value and stuff like that, right? So just because I think mine are right, it doesn't mean that I'm exempt from, like, someone maybe could be like, oh, she probably works with Lacey or something like that, right? But what I will say is I try to be very aware of that. And I try to be very intentional with the impact of that. And I try to be very cautious in that not being something that I'm like pushing as much as like being a model of, and then someone can choose. So again, it's not to say this is even all bad. Like, sometimes it is okay. Sometimes it is helpful. Sometimes even if you think you're right, other people might think that's wrong. Like, there's so many dynamics and nuance to this. And again, like I'm not unincluded from any of this, but I do think that it's crazy to me that we're all not talking about this, right? Where we're not like, dang, like whoever you hire has a major influence on you. Are you sure? Do you feel great about that? Are you making a really intentional hiring decision? Are you hiring because you're already aligned to their values, or are you hiring and then that's like all getting transmitted kind of? At least then one of my clients recently sent me a video testimonial where she shared that she never felt pushed to do anything that's not for her, and how working together showed her her way. And that was the biggest compliment ever. Totally. Alessi said, and in a bigger way, I'm definitely cautious of the changes some clients in their lives, like leaving jobs, moving, and I know they feel my influence there for sure. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that's so true. I'm walking with clients, we're all in many ways, right? But I'm just speaking from my perspective. I'm walking with clients through such big things like building businesses, bringing relationships together, taking relationships apart, like making huge life choices. Where are they living? Where are they moving? What are they deciding to do? And it's just being like, wow, there is so much influence that can be part of that. And are you being intentional with that? Are you being aware of that? Are you, yeah, like choosing your words cautiously? And I don't mean that you have to like, you know, like police yourself all the time, but I think the requirement that we would have to be intentional with how we're coaching and to not overly exert power and influence just because we like had something to say in that moment. It is not a big request for what most of us are charging and what our clients are paying us. And I think it's just really important. I think that's why so many things in the coaching industry kind of get called culty. Because you can just see the influence happen, right? And it's like, that's where the culty narrative comes in. And I think obviously some would meet that requirement more than others, but it's like, that's where it comes from. And, you know, if we can all start this conversation more, again, no one's exempt from it, no one's doing it perfectly, but if we can all start the conversation more, then we have more awareness around it. You know, I remember, oh, yeah, it's that point. Oh, Shantae, tell me what point, because obviously it's delayed, but tell me. Nova said some of the loudest teachers of that tough approach come from a lineage of known cults and crypto fascism. We got to be careful about whose charisma influence we get wrapped up in. And we also got to be so mindful of culty leaderness that can arise within us. Yes, loving this reminder to be constantly vigilant about how we build power and what that impact is. Exactly. And like literally none of us, and I think this is exactly what Nova is saying, none of us is exempt from being like, when you get a taste of that power and influence, that it feels good, that you like might fall into it or that you might want to wield it. Like in this particular instance that I was talking about, there is something that I personally, Lacey, feel strongly that would be good for this client. And I certainly have like coached her into questions around that. But I knew in that moment, if I was like, listen, you should just do this, she probably would, right? I'd probably feel good about that because I'd be like, yes, I helped her do this thing that I think she's been needing to do for a long time. But it would have been such a gross dynamic. It would have been like, because she came to me really vulnerable and I like pushed my narrative and agenda and then it happened, which isn't ultimately the same as what I actually want for her, which is her feeling empowered enough to make that choice and decision and stand for herself. Very different things, right? But it doesn't mean it never feels good. Doesn't mean it wouldn't feel good to kind of get that outcome. But again, I feel like so much of the narrative right now in the coaching space is like the best client is one who does what you tell them to do. The best client is one who like shows up and listens. And like, that's scary, y'all. That is so scary. There's so much influence there and we have to be careful of that. Parents said, oh my gosh, this was just having a convo about the culty vibe with a mentorship client. Yeah. Amanda said, have you all read the book Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism? Oh my God, you guys. I was like, is that fascism? No, fanaticism, similar to the comment Lacey just read. Oh, interesting. I haven't read it, Amanda. But I'm sure that's amazing. Oh, you don't remember exactly, feeling willing to lean back and give power to the client to use her discernment. Right. It's literally positioning the client as the keeper of their own wisdom versus pushing that what we think is best for them. Sometimes the most challenging thing to do is not say what we're thinking, even if we know it's best. That's exactly it. Shantae perfectly said, right? Like sometimes you do have to just say the direct thing as a coach. And I certainly practice that too, but I also think there's like a right time and a place where someone is in the right receptivity for that. And I think it really is our job to be aware of that and to practice nuance, right? And I think that's what's missing the most here is that sometimes I do feel like the best thing I can do for a client is just be like, listen, I'm going to like be real with you. Here's what I see. Because they're in a certain place for that. And then I think sometimes the other best thing I can do is be like, I'm going to keep my fucking mouth shut because I want this to be your decision, not mine, not something I pushed on you. That's a different thing. So I really feel like that's some of the nuance that we want to bring back, that we want to practice more of, that we want to lean into, that we want to call our mentors to, that we want to hold ourselves to, right? Is that like, the real question, right, is are we doing what's most in service of the client? Not are we getting them to do what we think they should do? Very different, right? That's hysterical, Jess. I did not know that, and I love that. Jess, that I feel like I know when you're trying to get me to come up with something instead of giving it to me based on how long you pause. That is so funny. Oh my gosh, you just made my day. That's hysterical. We'll have to make a grid. Like if Lacey pauses for 6 seconds or greater, it means, but seriously. For sure. For example, helping a client leave their job, they have to arrive to that. Do I think they should? Sure. But in the exact moment, it may not be the best place to insert my opinion. Always nuance, but yeah, exactly. Totally, Shantae. And oh my God. And I look up to the right. So funny. I do that. You're right though. Sometimes if I'm like, okay, I need to like assess how much intervention is appropriate for me here, I will do that. But like that shouldn't be too much to ask, that we have coaches and mentors that are willing to take a pause, willing to take a moment, willing to look up into the right or whatever it is you do to go, what's my role here? What's helpful? What's not? What's good? Right? Because I can shoot from the mouth all day at what I think anyone should do. That's just not typically what's the best thing, right? Like they're very different. Oh my God, it's so good. I've been like not having soda very much, you guys, and I'm having Diet Coke today. And it's just like doing it for me. Michelle said, listening to this conversation with Pull Away Girls just has really been a reminder too that this influence doesn't just exist in the coaching space. I used to see this in higher ed too, working with students. Oops, it disappeared, but I totally hear you. This conversation is going to lead people to asking you to create this coaching certification program, right? That's so funny, Shante. We'll think about it. And there's also something that really F's me up about our industry, and that is that it can be graspy to the point where it's wanting to keep our clients out of, wait, hold on. Let me grab that. Wanting to keep our clients out of their power by telling them what to do, desiring that they do exactly what we say, and shaming them when they don't, rather than coming from abundance, knowing that our best service is to effectively put ourselves out of a job because we are so committed to them developing greater sovereignty. So good. Kate, I feel you. So I've been doing no caffeine except for that. And it's just really good. I'm like, this caffeine hitting my veins feels great, but it also feels really good to be off caffeine. So it's very confusing. Jess said, coaches that don't do this remind me of basketball fans who try to coach from the stands. There are a million you should do this things, but they're not helpful. Oh my God, Jess, you're killing it today. Yes, that. Oh, so true. Alessia said, totally, I would like to make them do that jump often, but it's not my job to force it on them. And the circumstance seem to be widely different from their point of view. 1000%. I know, Michelle, it's so funny. The coaching certification thing, the universe is pinging me hard. So it's so funny because Megan and I were talking about, I've been like really desiring to create a new opt-in. And Megan was like, well, like, you know which one you should do, right? And I'm like, I know, but I don't want to, like, about like coaching skills. And we were talking about like we should call it like the opt-in that I don't want to create, but I'm creating. See, Diet Coke influence, but it is true. Like sometimes that really is, it's funny because it's a joke, but it is a thing. Like this is like the power of like being out there, showing things, talking about things. Like, again, me having my Diet Coke on here, someone else being like, oh, I want a Diet Coke. Like, we just don't realize how much that is. And I don't think that the conversation is you have to watch everything you do and say, but the conversation also can't be you have to watch nothing you do and say. Like that's where I get tripped up. Like I have conversations all the time where they're like, oh my God, with clients where they're like, oh my God, but if I share like this win, are other people going to feel bad about it? And I'm like, fuck them. That's like, who cares? You're allowed to share that. But that's very different than like you getting to own your win is very, very different than like, I am intentionally creating this dramatic effect and feeling in people and then taking absolutely zero responsibility for that, right? Like I'm sharing my win. Like some people might feel really excited about that. Some people might not. It probably depends on where they're at any given time, different person, different day, different thing. But I'm not like intentionally sharing it to create all of this like intensity versus like if I'm writing this like super shamey inflammatory post that is meant to create intensity and then I'm bowing out being like, I don't know what your problem is. That's bullshit. Like to me, that's bullshit, right? Those are different things. Yeah, Michelle said her influence is getting people to buy her favorite underwear. I'm one of those people. And I can confirm they're in fact great underwear. See Michelle for tips. So true. Going back to the things we don't want. I fought the universe on becoming an infertility IVF coach for about 2 years before I finally said fine. And then there was a global pandemic, right? sometimes you just got to get hit over the head with a frying pan before you do the thing. But, oh yes, Elisa, so interesting. This is basically TikTok in a nutshell. How can I create the most intensity in my viewer? Right. Which is, like, I'm not even saying you can't do that. I'm just saying, don't do it and then act like it's everyone else's problem when they're having intensity, right? Like, again, you do you. Like, I think we should all be thinking about what kind of impact we have on this industry. But at the end of the day, like, what pisses me off the most is when there's just no responsibility for that, right? Or even when a coach really pushes an agenda on a client and then the client does the thing and then the coach is like, I don't know why, like, what your problem is, or like why it's stressful or didn't work or whatever. And it's like, that's so tough. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think our job is to keep creating the option, the choice, the context, and keeping willing to like give the reflections we can, have that conversation. But at the end of the day, when we like elicit the emotion, push the thing, and then bow out on anything that we create from that, I just think it's so fucked, right? And I think especially when we bow out on what that creates in the industry, like, I don't want to have this whole conversation right now, but I do just want to say this one thing. I think some big stuff came out in our industry a few months ago. And I think the industry is feeling the impacts of that now. Like, I think we typically feel impacts of stuff that happens about 90 days after it does sometimes. And honestly, like, I think some big shit hit the fan in our space. Again, I'm not about to have this conversation, but I just want to like use this as an example of like the things that we do ripple into our industry. And then I think we all experience some of the effects of that. And so the intentionality behind knowing that as a member and leader in this space, you will have impact as someone who coaches people really personally, right? You will have an impact on their life. Like, that is crazy. I had a client recently and I met her and her husband said to me something to the effect of like, thank you so much. My wife is like such a happier, different person working with you. And it hit me so hard because I was like, that's so amazing. And also like, holy shit, like, this is how much impact and influence we all have. And we have to be so intentional about how we're using it. Like, that someone's husband would say that to you, right? Like, this is how big this work that we're doing is, this influence that we have in people's lives is. And like, we have to take that so seriously. And I also think we have to take that seriously in terms of the buying process. Like if it's challenging for someone to buy or to make that leap or whatever, yeah, like, because it's a big fucking deal, right? Big deal. So like, let's watch that with the lens and the reverence that it deserves, you know, and treat our actions with that, I think is really important. Yeah. Fair. I mean, I think it's probably great if people missed what happened. Beautiful reflection. Ah, that's so sweet, Diane. Thank you so much. What was I going to say on this? I had something that really came to me that felt important. Oh, just an example of this that I wanted to share is something I've been thinking about a lot lately is the partnership model, because I've seen so many people using this model and like running with this. And that's one of the reasons I did that partnership model masterclass. And oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so sorry I said anything. I'm a terrible person. Everyone missed it. Trust me, it's a good thing. Nova said the reality is that a lot of coaches were taught that they have the authority to lead only because one specific path worked for them. A lot of people who call themselves coaches really aren't. Right. They're like teachers, which is okay. It's just a different thing. Just so I'm not like a total asshole. Basically, what I was referring to that like happened in the coaching spaces, I think like a lot of people kind of had some backlash over like programs that they had bought and were like, unhappy and kind of coming out pretty vocally about a certain persons kind of thing. And I think it just sort of hit the fan. But I think that that what's important is not like who or what, it's that like, I think a lot of people were kind of like waking up and pushing back on certain things. And I think that like, that makes people consider like, what does this mean for buying and who we're buying from? And I just think that was the impact, right? Is that a lot of people were kind of just waking up to that whole like, wait, I shouldn't just be buying blindly because this person seems to have some shit together or seems to make a lot of money. And I think that was what it was. I think the problem in the copy industry is that people try to maximize outcome and minimize commitment, but I think we miss honoring the weight of the commitment when people choose to buy or invest. Jess, you are killing me today. That is so good. Honoring the weight of the commitment. That like, I mean, of course, our words, girl, right? But that one got me. That one got me hard. Yes, honoring the weight of the commitment. Let's do that. Like, if I'm going to teach a coaching program, that is what I want to call it. Honoring the weight of the commitment. Like that is so big. I think it has increased the length of buying decisions for sure. Agree, Shantae, for sure. Yes. And how much we spend. Exactly, Angela. You guys, can we just like slow clap Jess on that for a minute though? Cause like, holy hell. Yes. I think that's just, I mean, you're talking about the copy industry, but it is the coaching industry too, to a certain extent. It's almost like, how can I like maximize output, minimize commitment, instead of honoring the weight of the commitment of like choosing for this person to have influence in my life, right? I remember when I hired Maggie Reyes, before Kenny and I got engaged, when I was like trying to work through some of my relationship stuff from my like past relationship, I hired Maggie and she's amazing. But I remember, yes, everybody's slow clapping. Okay, good. I remember thinking to myself, like, and Maggie is someone that I like personally know very well, love, trust, honor, align values to. And I remember thinking very intentionally, like, okay, you're about to give this person a lot of influence on your relationship. Does that feel good? Do you have any questions you need to ask her? Do you have any boundaries you need to set? Because this human is about to have a lot of influence on the relationship dynamic you have. How, like, what does that mean? And luckily, Maggie and I were already so aligned, but even in that case, I was still asking myself that question. So I think we just have to like take that very seriously, right? Permanent slow clap. We should just get her one that can just play like in the background at all times. Oh, Angela, shoot, I just missed your comment. If you could copy and paste it, I would be so appreciative. I'm so sorry I missed that. But yeah, I like, and again, that's with someone who I have like met in person. I know her husband. I have a close relationship with. I have been her coach, like so much there, right? And like still had to be like, cool, like this is a lot of influence I'm giving over on a very particular and important area in my life. How do I feel about that? I think everyone should be thinking about that when they make hiring decisions. And I think we should all recognize, as Jess would say, honoring the weight of that commitment and also honoring what a commitment that is to people going into it. But Nova's exempt from this because people just hate to be in her vibe. No, she's teasing, but right, like I can't with that. I really cannot. Listen, do I think that there's like some element to like you wanting to be working with someone that you vibe with? Yes, but that's pretty much it. I think you've talked about this before, but the questions to ask your next coach, there may be a literally podcast episode on it. Yeah, I think there is. I will look that up, Shantae. I'm pretty sure there is a podcast episode on this, but if not, let me write it and I'll do it. Questions to ask your next coach, or we can do a live on it, but right, like, yeah, like it's a big freaking deal that I think we all can't take lightly. That is just really there. And again, I think especially like when I was, let's see what she said. I ended up feeling so much shame around a big investment in coaching because I didn't feel like the commitment was honored, which it is then like minus coaching, right? Again, perfectly said about the commitment being honored. Like, I don't think most people aren't willing to make a big investment, but I think when it doesn't feel like the person on the other end is willing to take that seriously and see it as a big investment and treat it with tenderness and care and intention and think about the influence they're exerting and think about what that means for you, for our industry, like all of that, like yeah, then however much you spent isn't going to feel good, right? Even if it wasn't a big investment, that still wouldn't feel good. So I think it's just really interesting to think about this and just like flat out say, like in hiring a coach, I wouldn't just say do I want to learn from that person? I would literally say, do I want to be influenced by that person? That's a very different question. Slash also practicing bringing even more discernment as a coachee. Like I know, excuse me, if I work with someone, I bring a lot of discernment too. Like, so I knew like Maggie and I were very aligned, but I also knew that I really trusted myself to bring a lot of discernment to where like if something didn't feel right, like I would be able to be like, I'm going to take that for what it is. And I appreciate that, but I'm like willing to do what feels best for me. And so, remembering that too. So it's not just, do I want to be influenced by them? Yes, that's an important question, but, and it's also like, and do I trust myself to like reject that influence if there are times when it doesn't feel good? That's something I like really encourage my clients around too. It's like, I think I actually wrote that to one of my clients this morning. I was like, listen, I'm going to tell you what I'm hearing here. I have this much context compared to you having this much context. So tell me to fuck off. Like if this isn't landing, right? But being willing to kind of say that and say like, hey, my coach gave me this reflection, but remember, they only know this much and I know this much and it doesn't feel true for me. So I'm willing to like reject it without then being shamed by the coach for rejecting it. Like that's the other thing too. I think some people want to practice discernment, but then they feel like they're going to be like the bad girl, student, or get all of this shamey, blamey stuff for like not listening. And that's what we have to stop too, right? Yeah, do I want to be influenced by this person? Elisa said, so I think this might be overly idealistic, high Sagittarius, but I often think about how the coaching industry can potentially influence the world as a whole in such a positive way, because at the end of the day, no matter your niche, it's all about healing and wholeness in some way. And that alone is such a responsibility. And honestly, the most beautiful work we can do. Completely agree with that, right? Like the ripple effects we can have are insane if we actually think about being intentional about those ripple effects versus if we're just thinking about like, how do I like personally get people to do what I want them to do? Like totally different thing, right? Another question is, will they guide me toward their success or mine? Oh yeah, totally. Right? Like guiding you towards their success looks like you doing what they want. Like, did you buy their next mastermind? Did you sign up for their next thing? Did you go do what they think you should do? Or is it about like you and what you want in your success? So good. Diane says, seems so connected to how long people need to be in my space before actually purchasing. Value-centered sales help me see this so much. Right. Yeah, they're like building that trust. I think coaches have the responsibility of creating space in the container where it's okay for the coach to be rejected. Kate, same page, completely agree. Right? Like, in fact, like sometimes that's when I'm like most excited as a coach, even, right? When a client's willing to be like, no, that doesn't feel true for me. I'm like, yeah, bitch, like get it. Okay, what does feel true for you? Like, how can I help you with that? Right? Like it's so empowering, Thank you, Elisa. Have fun at theater rehearsal. Michelle said, I think the most valuable thing for me about this conversation is not about using it to other and be like, man, I can't believe people shame and blame their clients, but really being discerning about how I can show up as the best version of me for both me and my clients, because I fully believe we all have, and oh my God, we all have room for improvement always. Exactly, Michelle. That's how we feel too. Like this conversation is not me being like, I do this right, other people do this wrong. This conversation is me being like, I have to think about this all the fucking time. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong. But like, it's a constant thought process. So what if we all just engaged in that constant thought process, right? I think that's super, super important. And I think it will always be, right? Even if you're teaching a coaching certification or whatever, like that should always be the thought process too. Like even in that, like you maybe haven't reached your pinnacle ever, you're just constantly willing to go there, right? Yeah, celebrate when clients disagree and assert themselves, especially when they have patterns of people pleasing. 100%, exactly. Like when a client knows it's safe enough to say like, hey, that doesn't resonate with me, when they feel like they always have to be the good girl, like, wow, what? Like that, there couldn't be anything better as a coach, really. Like a client doing what you want them to do is not that big of a feat sometimes, you know? The sacred no. Oh, so good, Diane. Yes. Knew we were on the same page per the point of having this combo. Yeah. Like I think, what was I going to say about that? Yeah. And I think we're always just going to refine our lines too. Like I was mentioning about how, I've been trying to I've been honoring my ragey side more and trying to have more hey, here's what I see in our industry that I want to call us all, self-included, to think about. And I did have a post or so where I was like, ooh, that was pretty not it. Or the point was there, but you know, and but in a way, I'm glad I let myself go there because I kind of found my edge and now I can course correct. So it's that doesn't even have to be bad. We just all have to be willing to look at that and do that work instead of I'm just always right. And anyone who doesn't think that can fuck off. That energy is so not it anymore because it's not what we're selling. You know what I mean? It's not what we're saying we're about as a coach, basically, you know? Write that down as a content topic. More people need to hear that. Oh, I love that, Shantae. Okay, let me make a note. Jess said, even hearing you coach Sabrina, you don't push your strategy on her. You push when she is avoiding or not doing something she really wants. Yes, totally. And I actually think well, not to spoil it, but in some of the later episodes, there were some dynamics we were working through, which you guys will hear us talk about, especially in the wrap up, but you'll see me lean way back. And it's exactly what she needed and what I needed to do then. And honestly, probably doesn't make me look the best for the podcast, if I'm just being real. There are probably a few episodes where I'm if you didn't know the context and didn't know me, you would probably be hi, welcome to the party. Are you going to coach? Are you going to show up? Are you going to hang out? You're just going to be quiet. But what I know for sure is we've been working together for long enough that I trust that I know when I need to really lean back. And so I did, because again, it's not about me looking good for the podcast. It's about what needed to happen in that moment. But again, it doesn't always feed our egos. It doesn't always make us look the best. And I think that that's another thing that we have to be willing to do. I think so much of our industry is a little bit too based on what feeds your ego instead of what serves the person in front of you, right? Michelle said, and the funny thing is we're usually our own worst critics when we find the edge with our posts. Exactly, right? And it's it's so good to find that and course correct without blaming or shaming yourself then too, right? Looking forward to listen to it. Yes, good. It'll be interesting to hear what y'all think. But yeah, we just, again, I want to go back for 1 second to that idea of almost guessing who someone's working with, or kind of knowing who that is. This isn't even a made up construct. This is something we can practically, realistically see happening through our space. And so with that, again, it's not to be okay, my goal isn't for no one to ever know or be able to guess who my clients are or anything like that. But my goal is definitely not to make that the goal either, if that makes sense, right? It's I can be neutral about that, but I do think practically you can see how much this is happening. And I just think that the recognition of that is the takeaway here. Are you recognizing that even if you have 5 coaching clients, that's the level of impact you could have? Are you realizing that even if you have 100 followers, that's the level of impact and influence you could have? Are you being intentional AF about that is really the question. Yes, leaning back can build such integrity. I love that, Diane. Thank you. When I was working as a therapist and having a challenge with a client, I remember my supervisor cheekily saying, so you're not getting to feel like a therapist. It's not the client's job to make you feel like a therapist. Oh, damn, Felicia, that is so good. Oh, such a good supervisor you had. What a great comment. Kristen said, oh, definitely curious about the wrap up with Sabrina and also don't want the season to end. Oh, so good. It's been a good one. Michelle said, I once had a coach mentor that would say you could either prove yourself or your coach. And you can't do both. It really stuck with me. You could either prove yourself or your coach. Oh, I get it. Never mind. Not your coach. You could either prove yourself or coach. Yeah. I can't believe literally is done. Well, literally isn't done, Michelle. Don't worry. We won't put that out there. This season is closing soon, but little surprise on that too. But yes, it's crazy. Like, I feel like we just like announced Sabrina yesterday. Yeah, I know. But yeah, I love that you can prove yourself or coach. And I think that's so helpful. I feel like coach, therapist, all like, you know, the example Felicia used to, like, it's basically like the goal is, can you check your ego, right? Oh my gosh, you guys, you're so funny. Gotta spill the beans. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I'm just going to tell you or give you a hint. It's really not that big of a surprise, so I'm probably just going to tell you because I don't actually want anybody to be disappointed if they think it's like a really big surprise. But we're just extending the season by a few episodes. Not like anything huge or anything, but it is going to be just like a little bit longer because we just felt like there was like a little bit more to share there. So instead of ending at 18 sessions, we are going to have a few more than that. So that's it. Not a huge surprise. It's not like an extra season or anything like that. But oh yay, you guys are so excited. Oh, I'll have to tell Sabs. Actually, let me tag here. Here. Everyone is so excited. And I think that was very gracious of Sabrina to agree to that. It was actually her idea. So very gracious of her to want to, you know, like keep showing up, keep serving in that way. I think this has been quite the interesting endeavor. We will talk about that, but really cool. So we'll just let her know how excited you guys are. Yes, last time you have to go without, literally, exactly. And we'll have like less of a break, I think, between seasons. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it'll be like what, maybe a month or less, which is cool because usually it's a little bit longer for us. Yeah, you guys loving it. Are we gonna do a wrap-up live stream? We're definitely gonna do a wrap-up session. I don't know if we'll do a live stream, but we probably could. I'll tag her for that too. Let's see. We'll say Sabrina. Okay. We'll ask her. Okay. That's our big thing though. Not a huge surprise, but it will be fun. Okay. You guys want a live stream too? Okay, cool. We also have to do a live stream with the next coachee as well. So that'll be kind of fun and exciting too. I think Sabs might come to that one because she's like an NFT person. So we might do all of that together. So anyway, lots of exciting things coming up. Definitely excited for you guys to hear the last bit of the season, and can't wait for you to meet our next person. I think she's going to rock your socks. Is that a saying? Blow your socks off? I don't know. Not sure what I meant to go with there, but very good. But yes, I mean, that's really it. Like, obviously we could keep talking about this for a long time, but I think the big takeaway here is awareness, right? Awareness as coach, awareness as coachee, awareness as leader, awareness as person who has audience, who puts out content, who creates, who shares. Like, there is so much more to this than we talk about. There's more to it than meets the eye. There's a lot of influence we have, a lot of good we can do, and a lot of good impact we can make, but the awareness is there. And I'm going to like end it with Jess's thing again of like truly honoring the commitment. Like, that is what I think the conversation is here. So I appreciate you guys being part of it. Do we get a hint about the new person? Let me think on that, Michelle, so I don't give one that is not good, but maybe next time I will. Like loves posting in fields with cows. I don't know why that's the example. Okay. Okay, actually, I have a hint. Has a business that is wildly different from any that we've ever had on the podcast. I think that does it. That's a good hint. Yay. Okay, guys, I loved this. I appreciate you all. Remember, $100 gift card giveaway for being here just because I love you. I love this conversation. I love that you choose to spend your Monday with me. And so I hope you guys have a beautiful week, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye, guys.